The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Not before the election.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance. What was his public response to Treasury's suggestion in the 2008 briefing to the incoming Minister that he consider a, quote, move towards a tax system more heavily weighted towards consumption taxes, close quote?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I don't recall I don't recall exactly what was said or what I was asked about that. What I can say to the member is that the government is working with the economy in the state that it finds it. We set up the tax working group in May last year. It started publishing its proceedings in August last year, and their report, their very thorough and openly debated public report, has drawn the government to the conclusion that it should consider the option of cutting income taxes offset by a modest increase in GST.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to assist the Minister's recall, does he still stand by his statement, quote, we won't be doing anything on GST. We are focused on personal tax cuts as our top priority. Or should that now read, quote, keeping our word is no longer our top priority, raising GST is.
Order.
Close quote.
The member knows that that is not an appropriate way to frame a question, that latter part of that. The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the fact is that the incoming National Government did campaign on tax cuts. We put in place the first tranche of them. We had to cancel the second tranche of them because of the effect of the global recession. And at the same time, we set up a tax working group that has openly discussed an increase in GST for 6 months. And it took till yesterday for that member to think to ask a question about it in this House.
Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, how can he expect New Zealanders to trust his government's promise of some kind of compensation for GST when he said, quote, we want to maintain GST as it is. We want to keep that rate, only to break that promise a year later.
The Honourable Bill English.
That was up.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've outlined for the member the circumstances. National campaigned on income tax cuts. In fact, in the budget 2009, I suppose now there was the option to increase GST to fund more of the tax cuts, but actually we decided not to proceed with income tax cuts because the country couldn't afford it. Since then, the tax working group has put in front of the government advice that changing the balance of tax with cutting income taxes funded by a modest increase in GST would result in a better tax system, but from our point of view, result in a better economy.
Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. Why is the government considering a small increase in GST as part of a wider package of tax changes that will help New Zealanders get ahead?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, New Zealand is still a country that spends more than it earns. In fact, our total debt to overseas lenders has now reached $160 billion, and it got significantly worse in the last 4 or 5 years. It is time we took stock and created incentives in this economy that favour working and earning and saving and investing, because we can't continue with overspending and borrowing to fill the gap as happened under that member's economic management.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, if the Minister believes that that was then and this is now, given that he was once a former leader of his party and a former finance minister, how can he expect the public to trust him on GST when he's now broken 2 promises on tax cuts since taking office this time around?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, the member will just have to wait and see how the details of the package shake down. Those decisions are ahead of the government. When we've made them, we'll announce them, and people will be able to see what impact it has on them.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does he now accept that his pledge to maintain GST at its current rate, made in February of 2009 after the election, means that his leader's defence, different from his own yesterday, on his GST flip-flop could now have been better considered?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, I don't accept that.
Question number 5, the Honourable